Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 here on the Swampcast Network. Right now, it is just me here, so hopefully Rob will join us. But I'm glad today to be joined by the former gubernatorial candidate from Georgia, Mr. Shane Hazel.
Mitch, good to be with you, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Nice to talk to you again, because those listening might not know this. I used to campaign for Jacob Hornberger, and when we were doing the podcast for Hornberger, you were one of the interesting guests we had on that's for sure.
Oh man, that was a fun campaign, and I had a lot of hope for Jacob, but it wasn't in the cards, unfortunately. I think looking back, he would have been a much more explosive candidate to keep up with on the campaign trail. That's for sure.
It would have been interesting. I'm not going to lie. There's a little part of me that always looks back and wonders what could have happened with 2020 and that election. But hey, who knows? No use thinking about what could have happened.
Yeah. It's no reason to dwell. That's for sure. But yeah, he put up a really impressive, fun time. Going into the convention, and I think there was a great message there. I got the chance, I think, to interview him here in Atlanta. And that was my first time to sit down with him. I just thought, what a incredibly bright guy with, a lot of fire under him. So yeah, good guy to have.
Oh yeah, no, I think he's definitely a class act. Well, I wanted to talk about what happened with Georgia and your run for governor and everything like that. But since we just kind of dived into Hornberger, I might as well ask this one question. We're starting to see 2024 heat up a little bit. Is there anyone who has your eye? I'm not asking for an endorsement, just anyone who hey, that person seems kind of cool.
Dave Smith is pretty cool. I know he's not even running yet. I think they're going into the second round of the LP presidential. I'm not interested at all in any of the current people who are running. I'm not. And there's no spark, there's no fire, there's no it's something of a very dry field, and we need some energy, we need some charisma, we need somebody that's appealing, that makes a great argument, that's also fun and doesn't take it too damn seriously, because at the end of the day, we're a third party that is left to our own devices, because nobody wants to come in with their fiat system and do anything for us, because we're not looking at expanding policy.
Yeah, and sorry, we got a little bit of a Bitcoin spam coming in, of course.
Oh, look at that.
Right on time. But yeah, no, I think someone like Dave is perfect just because he sort of acts as a good beacon. Two names that I'm sure you're familiar with that are already running, like Mike Tremont and Chase Oliver. I think they're both great, but I think they're both so good that I don't want them to be wasted on running for president.
Yeah, I don't know Mike real well. I know Chase. We actually went to the same high school.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some bad blood there, man. And so, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be, cheeky with Chase. The guy is, he's like listening to, a bunch of cats or screeching chalkboard or something like that. I'm not a fan. So,
Gotcha.
I think he turns a lot more people off for libertarian principles than they actually, bring into the party. And I think, his record shows it.
Gotcha. Well, you both ran for office in Georgia, so I might as well just jump a little bit into that then. What was it like kind of going through that experience? Like, what was your takeaway from that?
For the gubernatorial run, man, it was terrible, because when I got the nomination, I think it was late January coming into February. In March, I was having a back surgery, and that back surgery, I got an infection in my spine, and had to have a second surgery, and then was laid up in the hospital for quite a while. I had to learn how to walk and do a whole bunch of things all over again. And rehab took me really up until the later part of fall. And to people may not have seen my face and everything while I was on that debate stage, because the energy was rocking and everything else like that, and I probably had a couple of pain pills. But yeah, it was one of those things that kind of took my attention off of politics for the first time and brought it very near and dear and close to home. It just kind of reprioritized what was going on in my life. I mean, having a spine infection, I mean, you're on death's doorstep at some point, and so that was something that kind of just changed my life. And whether it was a poor performance or just not being able to get out and do much at all, and barely being able to get out of bed for a few months, it was one of those things that uh, I look back at, and if maybe somebody else would have done it, maybe they would have done better. I don't know, but I do know for a fact that we've got some real issues here in Georgia with the state of Georgia ballot access, and really, I think we've got a huge and deeply flawed voting system here, which is absolutely, I think, corrupted and made to elect whoever they want in office.
Yeah, that ballot access, that's why I'm glad here in Florida that we have it kind of enshrined in the law that we're guaranteed that sort of thing. I know other states have to deal with that, unfortunately, but I always try to encourage them if they can to try and get those things passed. That way, it's not a hurdle that you always have to deal with every election cycle.
Yeah.
But you also brought up the debate that I believe you were in with Kemp and Stacey Abrams. Is that what you were referring to when you were saying that maybe you didn't do as well in the debate? Or
Oh no, like you couldn't tell that I was standing there in pain.
No, I couldn't. I thought you did spectacular. That's why I was wondering, like, wow, he was.
Maybe I was channeling the pain and some orneriness. I'm not getting any younger, so to stand up there between two children and basically ask them to leave us alone, it was a very, I don't know. It was surreal. It was kind of the cap. In my final performance for, I think being a candidate in the Libertarian Party for quite some time to come. Kind of like my retirement role there.
Well, it was good to have someone in the middle there, just to kind of be a voice of reason. Even if things could have gone a bit better, a lot of the moments we got from that, I think, will last. You brought up Chase. I try to be nice with everyone. That's just how I am. I will say, though, your debate moments seem to stick out a lot more. Like, when I think of moments that it's like, if I'm going to send that to someone in my family, it would be, one of those things.
Yeah, I think, and maybe this is just a lesson to anybody that wants to go out and, kind of command a stage. There is something to having some presence when you're in front of cameras, when you're in front of other people. It comes with a lot of experience, and being a master of that is not something that you're gonna half-heartedly go and do. And I don't know, maybe it takes a little bit of bravado and everything else, or just a giant chip on your shoulder where all you can do is hold back from flattening a guy that was a tyrant during COVID and shut down a state of 10 million people. Like I was super pissed. Like I was really, like I saved up a year, maybe not the healthiest choice, but at the same point it was like, I've been waiting a year for this moment right here to absolutely flatten that guy, whether it was mostly literally, but in the back of my mind, like, man, what I want to do to tyrants is like I think we've all felt it.
Yeah. And frankly, it's that moment of saying, like, do you want to say you're sorry to anyone? Like, it shows you a lot more than you normally don't get from politicians when they're acting fake, because you put that in front of him, and he legitimately did not know how to respond to that because he's never been put in that situation. Like, here, let me get the music off. But I'm pretty sure he almost wants to turn to you and be like, "What the heck, man? You're not supposed to ask me that."
Yeah, he may have been a little baffled by you when he said, "Yo, is that a question?"
Yes.
I think all of Georgia and our terrible school system knows that was a question, you dork. But yeah, I think people need to understand, first and foremost, if you ever do get a chance to go up on the debate stage with a Democrat and a Republican, what I was dealing with here in Georgia as the gubernatorial candidate with the Republican and the Democrat standing next to me was what I can amount to Brian Kemp being a little boy. I mean, literally a little boy, and they were playing dress up with his, Southern make believe suit and his hair and, a guard around him and all that, nonsense. And then you had Stacey Abrams, who was off to my right. I'm going to tell you right now, I think Stacey is a very nice woman, politics aside, right? Like the fact that she wants to rob you blind and criminalize, good people. Like, aside from that, that woman was scared to death to be standing there. Her hand was shaking throughout the debate. She couldn't look at me. She couldn't do any of that kind of stuff. And beforehand and afterhand, we exchanged pleasantries, had a small conversation. Super nice in terms of just being a person. But to think that these aren't mere mortals, I think most people are absolutely wrong. Like, I think those two were scared to death to share that stage at night. They wouldn't go to the press conference afterwards. After the just taking both barrels to the chest as much as I could give it to them, and they wouldn't do any other debate. So I think people need to just realize, like, look, you're running against human beings. I know they're backed by a machine, but at the same time, it's not impossible to do.
Okay, well that's really interesting. Because I think because we're in the liberty sphere, we're such renegades that we can't help but look at the elites and think that they're like all these Jeffrey Epstein types. But at the end of the day, a lot of the politicians in front of us, they're the puppets on a string.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can swear on your show, but it
Oh,
is.
go right ahead.
Yeah, they're fucking muppets, and they're not smart. Like, they're not bright. They haven't, they've taken talking points over the years and regurgitated them enough to where they believe their own talking points. And it's sad. And, there's no critical thinking. There's no questioning, like, would we be better if we tried this another way? Without the state, are we criminalizing peaceful people? Which I think at the end of the day, if they could have conversations with themselves as kids or even as teenagers. The reason I think a lot of people get into politics is to do, great things for their community, to try to help out because they see a broken world. And when you have these guys out there after they get involved in politics and they see where they have to be to get reelected, on issues and policy and on taking donors' money, this whole god awful laundering cycle that's out there. You start to see the equivocation, and at some point they get caught up in the process of a simple piece of legislation a lot of times, and it actually absolutely corrupts them, which is unfortunate.
So do you think it's kind of like I'm going to get a little bit nerdy here? Do you think it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings thing where it's like people just can't hold the ring without being tempted by that power? Like I
Yeah,
feel like that's kind of
I,
what that sounds like.
yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's, do you want to be in office more than you want to be able to look yourself in the mirror? And I think for the vast majority of these people, they get hooked on this idea that they're powerful, that they have attention, and that at the end of the day, they want to keep it, and so they make concessions. And you're exactly right. As soon as they get that taste of power, letting go of that is something else. And to be honest, I don't think they would be in power, right? Like, I think it takes a certain type of narcissistic person to stay in power like that, instead of being that kind of like, fuck you. Like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not saying those things. You guys are out of your damn mind. You're fired. I don't know. All of those things. Get some people in here that actually want to do some liberty stuff, and it's just not in them. It's not in their DNA.
And that's interesting because, like, as you're describing that, two Democrats came to mind. One good, one, I don't even know if he's still a Democrat. He might be long gone by now. It seems like they chased out almost all the good ones.
Yeah.
But one good one, the pinnacle of what we would all consider to be a bad politician. The good one being Dennis Kucinich, if you remember him at all.
Yeah, Dennis Kucinich, man. Him and Ron Paul actually get along on quite a few things in terms of foreign policy, and
Yeah.
that's amazing to see. But yeah, they chased him out. They chased out Tulsi. I'm not saying Tulsi's great on everything, or even most things, but on some things like foreign policy, a lot of times she was actually very good, and they've chased them out of the party for sure.
Yeah, and I find that to be really sad. But with Dennis, I don't know if he necessarily got chased out or if he just kind of separated himself over time because he's been around longer. But then I think of the opposite of that, that being like Hillary Clinton, who you look at this person smile and put on this fake as hell smile, and it's like she just can't fake sincerity. Like the person I'm seeing on the screen is definitely not the person behind the scenes.
Oh no, she is wicked, and I mean that in the most literal way possible. I think that woman, she's been an accomplished to murder. She's invaded countries for the banking cabal. Hasn't Doesn't give a shit about millions of people being killed in the Middle East. What foreign policy has done, what the mistakes that were made under her tenure as the Department of State, secretary. So, yeah, man, you look at Hillary, and you're right. She can't fake her way through even a normal interview. And when you see it, you see it. When she says, what difference does it make, or we have to be careful of these things called cryptocurrencies and things like that because they could destabilize. And you're like, oh man, that lady, guys. I don't know if you guys know this in your little lizard cabal, but whenever that lady tells us maybe we shouldn't do something, maybe we should be looking at, we're all looking at it and doing the opposite of what Hillary Clinton is advising. So, yeah, to your point, she's absolutely the worst poker player I think you'd be in politics.
She's just not good at this. Like,
Ikeable.
every president had something charming about them. Her, it's just like there's an image out there of her walking into like a working class person's house, and the look on her face says everything. Like it's just this look of like astonished, like exactly what you just did there. Like,
Ew.
Poor people, damn proles.
Right? Yeah, I can't believe I have to slum it. Get me out of here as fast as possible. Who screened this? Yeah, that is Hillary Clinton to a T.
Before I move on to the next question, I just want to bring this up because you'll find this fits in line with what we're talking about with Hillary Clinton. There's a book out there of Secret Service confessions, which are all dudes just telling their stories. Kennedy seems like the coolest boss in the world. Hillary seems like the worst boss in the world.
Yeah, I've heard some stories about her asking Secret Service to do baggage and screaming and yelling at them, and yeah, just like
that goes in line with the confession that I read.
Yeah, they're not help, lady. They're there for one purpose and one purpose only, and it's not to carry your damn bags.
No, they're there to take the bullet.
Oh God. What? And seriously, there's a special kind of person that does that. I don't know if we need to get into Secret Service and all that fun stuff.
I don't know. Dave Smith had the best jokes about it in Libertas. Why don't we leave it to him?
Oh yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, but anyways, just kind of backing up a little bit. We know a lot of. I know there's people who listen to this show who either have ran for governor, whoever run for office. For instance, Hector Ruse here is making some comments. He ran for governor down here in Florida this last time around. I guess just based on your experience and what you went through, like what advice would you have for those who are looking to run?
Running for the LP?
Yeah,
stay small. Don't and here's the thing: if you see something and you're passionate about it, don't listen to me. Okay, like first and foremost, if you see an ability to create more understanding of libertarian ideas, don't listen to me. I will tell you, as a guy that's run for a few offices now, that I don't know that this is where we are best suited. And I say that because I understand the banking cabal, this plutocracy that's emerged here in America and really around the world. Is there's a newer, better system that's being built that is going to completely displace what the system is in terms of, parties and, DC and centralized authority and, just spending. For us as libertarians, one of the biggest problems we run into is we can't get money, and we will never get money. It's not a question of, can we compete with these guys? We cannot. We may be able to pull off a couple of elections locally that the Republicans and Democrats miss, and that's really kind of our best hope. So if you're looking to actually win an office, stay local. Do something where you can run locally, fly under the radar, and possibly get a seat. But when we're looking at statewide, national offices or anything like that, this is one of the things where if you're really concerned about liberty and you really want to push a system, I'm going to make the equation that when you were a kid, and you went over and you played in your buddy's sandbox, and I mean a little kid, right?
Yeah.
You could exchange, sand all day long, whatever. But at the end of the day, there was something wrong with that sand, and it's because the neighbor's cat would come over and take a shit in that, sandbox. And a lot of times cats carry this thing called toxoplasmosis, which is, a disease that you can contract. And now every time you trade a little bit of sand here and there with your buddy, whatever you're doing in that sandbox, there's a third party. That's our banking system. Our banking system is the third party to every transaction there is. So if you will take these giant policies that are tyrannical as hell and vote for them, you're going to get money. If you're not going to do that, you'll never get money. And that's the Libertarian Party. We're not looking to ever expand government. So what we're doing is essentially wasting our time and our energy in this, this escapade, so that we can maybe possibly, with enough action, get some scraps of liberty. And that's what it amounts to. And I don't want to be pessimistic, because there is a better system that we'll probably talk about at some point that is emerging. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name is I think it was Buckmeister or something like that. But he talks about basically to supplant the system that's broken, you have to build a completely new system, and that's what we have to do.
I totally feel that, and I have to ask because I see you always tweeting about this, and it's the first thing that pops into my mind when you're talking about a new system. Are you talking about like blockchain type governance, that sort of stuff? Or
I'm literally talking about changing out the money. The money is what's broken,
yeah,
first and foremost, right? So the money's broken, and I'm not talking about crypto. I am talking specifically about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a commodity. It is there's so much into the depth and breadth of what Bitcoin is and why it was built in the first place. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but Bitcoin was actually built during the 2007-2008 collapse, so that the bankers and the politicians and all of these people could never, ever, ever strip us of our wealth again, or strip the cypherpunks. Like the cypherpunks were done. They were like, screw this, guys. Like, we're young. We're never going to see Social Security. We're never going to see Medicare, Medicaid. These guys are going to rob us blind. And the next bubble that bursts is probably going to be the banking bubble. So when, we see this banking bubble that's now melting in real time, and people are like, man, what do we do? Like, what do I do with my money that's exposed? If you're exposed in a dollar, like, you're at risk. Your wealth forever is at risk right now. So the idea that Bitcoin is the system that we have to start with, supplanting the money system, which controls everything, like, that is my mission. Like, from here until the day I'm in the ground, like, that's it.
no, right on. I'm a big proponent of Bitcoin. I actually have a node currently running on a Raspberry Pi underneath this desk. So you're
Yeah,
in good company here.
running nodes, man.
Oh
That's
yeah.
what a patriotic thing to do. And that's, man. If there was ever an American idea, that has now been coded, that doesn't have rulers, that you cannot subvert, that is decentralized, that is freedom incarnate. It's just like, man, it's Bitcoin. Like, we can talk about it all you want.
Oh no, I can totally nerd out here, like just how, and even then, like just to, because I like kind of getting this idea of this technology out more to people, because I feel like they think, oh, just a node monitoring the the network. There's a lot you can do with a Raspberry Pi, even with like something like Umbrel. So there, I can see why you're very optimistic on that regard. But I kind of have to push a little bit too and ask. You said not crypto, so like, are you a little bit more skeptical of other cryptocurrencies, or is mainly just, or do you consider yourself what they would call a Bitcoin maximalist?
It's funny. I actually just opened a service called the Bitcoin Maximalist, where I do concierge and advisory for Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. Now, I'm not here. I'm not going to sit here and say that there will never be a functional use for crypto in general. I'm not. I'm not going to say that. What I will tell you is be super careful. And this is why. Most crypto is a shitcoin, and
Yeah.
what I mean by a shitcoin is kind of Bitcoin maximalist speak for this is the same thing as your U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar is actually kind of your first shitcoin. When they depegged in 1971 from the gold standard in Bretton Woods 2, what you got was now a world reserve currency that is based on absolutely nothing. And when that happened, it became a derivative, and now debt is the derivative of the dollar. And you're sitting there going, okay, what do we do with this? Well, we had the petrodollar for a while until BRICS started standing up, and now the decline in the dollar is what we're dropping from. I think we were somewhere around 75% prior to 2019. 2019 fell off a cliff, and we were down to 55% basically in terms of acceptance around the world. So you have the de-dollarization going on. In 2023, we are down from 55% down to, I think, 46% in terms of de-dollarization. So as you see the dollar being unaccepted by anybody and everybody else, it's the same thing as because I think there's only 3% of the cash, in holdings in the banks that the zeros and ones actually represent. So there's no real cash. There's no real value. It's this ephemeral idea that we have trust. And when you look at the quantitative easing that's going on now, and which has happened over the past 3 years, we've gone from I think it was like $20 trillion in debt, now up to $31 trillion in debt pretty fast. And when you start to look at what those orders of magnitude mean, it's best when somebody said it beautifully today. It's something to the effect of like what part of a billion is a trillion, and a billion is a rounding error when it comes to a trillion. So if you were going to make seconds into time, right, and you were to take 1 million seconds, 1 million seconds would equal about 11 days. A 1 billion seconds would equal about 11 or 13 years. And when you get to trillions, 1 trillion seconds equals 31,000 and some change years. So when you start to think about, like, what did they do to the money supply when they printed about 9 trillion or breathed $9 trillion into existence, what you're talking about is literally no other classification but hyper inflation, the orders of magnitude that they blew up the money supply. That can all be done with most cryptos because it is centrally held, it is centrally controlled. The rules, are governed sometimes by a board, sometimes by a single member. It's what happened to FTX. It is going to happen, to a lot of other organizations that are out there that deal with anything besides Bitcoin only. So, like, if you're looking at, places where you can exchange money and possibly keep a little bit of money on their exchange, which we don't recommend. Maybe Swan Bitcoin, maybe River Financial. Those two organizations are Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. But if you're looking at places like Coinbase or Binance or any of the rest of these places that are holding cryptocurrency in exchange for dollars, get ready to get rugged, because at the end of the day, if somebody says, "Hey, man, like, hey, boys, sell your tokens now, we're getting out of here," it'll be Sam Bankman-Fried all over again with FTX. That's
I
why I'm not into crypto.
No, in some ways I can understand that sort of skepticism, but at the same time, I love kind of the idea of there being other alternatives in a free market of money. The reason, it's funny that you bring up the whole exchange thing too, because I want to say it was crypto.com. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this. But one of those exchanges had like their financial reports came out and they had a stupid amount of money in Shiba Inu.
Yeah.
Like, not even Doge, the fucking ripoff of Doge.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Doge was a practical joke that took
Yeah.
off, and it was like, really, you guys were gonna put some money into Doge? Like, yeah, it's tough, man. It is tough because people go, yeah, you know what, this sounds good, and then somebody gets on a Twitter Spaces or something and says, yeah, man, you guys need to snatch this up now, and they know what they're talking about. They said, I've been around here and I've made some money doing this kind of boy. Be careful, people.
Well, that's where in a way, I feel like we kind of had that at convention this weekend, where we're gonna have this guy on. So I'll follow up with him in the future, but I didn't really get positive answers to my concerns. This guy Kurt, he's basically an advocate for Bitcoin SV, and for one, when you enter into that whole "this is the real Bitcoin" situation, for one,
Mhm.
you're confusing the boomers, and for two, it comes off as a brand heist and pettiness. You're not trying to make the product sell itself. You're trying to say, no, 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 that's not the real product. This is the real product.
Yeah, and let's in I don't know, very plain speak, if it's not Bitcoin on chain, the original, like it's not Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's a fork. And I think anytime you look at any organization that's forked their software, it's just an admission that their software wasn't good enough to begin with. And every time you fork, you're looking at now rebuilding trust. And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is a trustless system. And that's what any money should be, is trustless. If you have, what these organizations like the WEF and the IMF and all these other organizations that want to stand up CBDCs, right? And why do they want to do that? Well, they want to do that so that they can track everything that you spend your money on. So whether it's good, bad, or different, what they want to do is track so that they can trust who's spending, and it defeats the entire purpose of money in general. Money is supposed to be trustless, so that you go, yeah, you know what, that's 99% pure gold bullion or silver or lead or it's Bitcoin. Like there's no faking this. There's no fungibility problem here. So when we get into this idea that you're ever going to do that with cryptos or anything else, like I don't know, it's a non-starter to begin with. And one of the big things is, like, when people ask me about other cryptos that are I don't know, like maybe they're very much like Bitcoin, they're decentralized and everything else. I think what a lot of people miss at that point is the hash power. Like the exit hash power that we have now that is running the Bitcoin network is substantially larger than all nation states combined could possibly come up with. So a 51% attack on mining, which is basically securing the blockchain, like it can't happen anymore. And that's an amazing thing to be able to say, is like we're finally to that point where state actors can't get in there. And the thing is if let's just say if they did pull off one double spend, they would absolutely get clobbered by the network, and they would have spent trillions and trillions of dollars to do it, when they would have been better just to buy damn Bitcoin, right? Like at the end of the day, you could have taken trillions of dollars and just bought Bitcoin. Instead, you spent all this money to get one double spend. Like, silly.
Yeah, and you brought up CBDCs, and I got to ask, because this is kind of a sneaking suspicion I've always had.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a possibility that USDC is just kind of Fed coin existing in beta out in plain sight? Because it was used by the feds to influence foreign policy in South America.
I think USDC is exactly that. I think most crypto is a liquidity suck because they're just printing so much money, right? I think it's a money laundering system. That's why Sam Bankman-Fried is out in jail, while Ross Ulbricht is rotting for 2 life sentences in prison, right? Like it's I think it is an absolute money laundering scheme. In Bitcoin, what we talk about is signal, and we talk about noise. And if you know anything about radios, like, you want pure signal. Like, this is the market signal. If you're into Austrian economics or any of those kind of things, the market has correction tools because the market reacts quickly, because if it doesn't, then you pay the price and you go out of business and then you don't eat and things like that. That's the market signal, and that's Bitcoin. Is like, it is pure signal. Nobody can screw with it. It's got a positive incentive structure, and it's literally, it's money, right? Like, this is the communications protocol. Well, everything, well, I should say most everything else is just software. Like, it's just software. This is literally hard money.
So here's the magic question, and I know some people don't like to answer this. Who do you think Satoshi Nakamoto is?
Boy, there's a lot of people that think it's Hal Finney. There's a lot of people that think it's a group of cypherpunks out there. That's, you know, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't even begin to make a guess at who he was, and nor do I care. I think that's the beautiful thing about open source. If you look at open source code, and everybody can go, oh yeah, you know what, that actually checks out. And I mean, for Jack Dorsey to call it one of the most seminal pieces of code to have ever been written, as I think a real statement coming from a guy that first and foremost, came up with Twitter, left Twitter, and has now started dedicating his life to, building out Bitcoin, the Lightning networks, and things like that. So, I don't really care who Satoshi Nakamoto is. I really kind of love the idea that there's nobody to pin the rose on. There's nobody to go after. Janet Yellen has even said, "Hey, look, there's nobody we can go after here. Like, this is impossible to regulate." Which, to me, hey, game over at that point. Janet Yellen's given up on trying to regulate Bitcoin. Good. I think everybody else should too.
No, I would agree. And when you have someone who is like known as the leader or the creator, everyone kind of looks to that person as the figurehead. So not having that, there's more freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but like, given the opportunity to, in fact, know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, have him exposed, I would rather not. I would rather never know. I would rather, I don't want to know who this guy is. Thank you very much for the technology. Thank you for the evolution of the human species. But listen, you're better off being a nameless, faceless, anonymity that just exists.
Exactly. Who is John Galt?
That's perfect.
Yeah. But I will say, I don't know if I forget his last name, but Sergey, the guy behind Chainlink, I think that his response to if he is Satoshi is exactly what I would do if I didn't make Bitcoin, but people thought I did.
Yeah.
Like, there's an interview with Lex Friedman where Lex straight out asks him, "Are you Satoshi?" And he basically taps, and he says no, but then he taps with his hand in Morse code. Yes. It's like, I would do that just to fuck with people, man. Like,
that's really good.
Like, either that was intentional or that was just like the worst, like,
oh, a nervous habit.
Nervous habit. I don't know. It was funny. No, I'm not Satoshi, or am I? No,
yeah.
That could be. Like, that's what it's the equivalent of. Like, oh man.
Yeah, who do you think it might be?
Me. I have 4 people that I go between. Sergey is one of them. Elon Musk is another, just because the timelines.
Maybe.
Elon said the true thing often ends up being the most entertaining. That would be very entertaining.
Man, I'll tell you what, if Elon was Satoshi Nakamoto, I mean, seriously, is he even human at this point? I mean, the guy, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody I got a bromance with Elon. Like, I honestly, I'm very skeptical of the guy. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that's happening because he's taken over Twitter. And, to be that guy that doesn't need money, right? Like, the guy doesn't need any more money. He's making it hand over fist right now to not be the guy that's going to swell Bitcoin, that's not going to, push Bitcoin, that's not going to be its cheerleader. Boy, I don't know. Maybe it's a great, great theory though.
Well, that one I got from Chico Crypto, who is actually, I think he's actually a member of the LP too, although I've never run into him at any of these things. But the other 2, I don't know if you ever heard of Paul LaRue.
Maybe.
International drug and crime lord, basically got on the U.S. government's radar when his militia started capturing land in Somalia.
Huh.
Stupid smart computer programmer. So I don't know. That seems kind of likely.
Yeah. Who's your last?
Adam Back,
Okay.
CEO of Blockstream.
Yeah. I've also heard some people say that it was John McAfee, and you're like, well, that's, you know, why I'm not going to sit here and discount the fact that John was a smart enough guy to be able to do that too. But I mean, what a crew. And that's the thing is, I don't know, were any of those guys hanging out 2008, 2009? Were they collaborating behind the scenes? Who knows, man?
Well, that's where it's like I feel like a lot of the evidence that people look at, it's either timelines or how someone writes and stuff like that. Like Back, the main thing with the smoking gun with him is Satoshi wrote in British English, and there were 2 spaces after each sentence. And out of all the candidates, he's literally the only one whose that is. So it could just be like the world's most unfortunate thing where it's like he's one of the few people who still writes in this academic style that's been dead for a long time.
You know what's funny is I still put 2 spaces after a lot of things unless I'm on.
So there we go.
That's funny.
Yeah, there was like a whole smoking gun with that. But what was funny was not long after people started pointing that out with him, he stopped doing the 2 spaces thing.
I'm done. You got me.
Yeah, exactly. But funny stuff. So you kind of tapped into this a little bit ago, but I'll just ask to see if there's anything else. Like, what exactly does the future have in store for Shane Hazel?
Boy, I'm a homesteader these days, man. I am, I came off that back injury, luckily enough to recover. And I got to tell you, one of the things that I did during that time was I stood up the organizational, still standing it up. It's a post traumatic stress mission. It's called Brave. Does a lot with the research that was done by Johns Hopkins University with psilocybin, and we've got access to a lot of property out here. A couple thousand acres. And, I take guys out, a lot of veterans, not all veterans, because there's more people with post-traumatic stress. And we work out some kinks, and we give people purpose and, have them see the universe and society differently at that point. I mean, I got to tell you, it changed my life. It was one of those things where I went out and did, about 7.5 grams of mushrooms. And it was one of those things that, I left early in the morning, told my probably going out back for a while. And, 4 o'clock in the morning in the North Georgia mountains with bears and everything else that are out here, did this gigantic trip. And I was like, this is it. I gotta get other people doing this kind of stuff. So, it was, I don't know. It's something I love to introduce people to, and obviously we've got a giant mental health problem. So I'm going to be doing a lot of that. I'm going to be doing a lot of Bitcoin, in the near future. And if I can, combine those two things, which I think are very much linked to each other in terms of unity and seeing your fellow man and understanding them and leaving them. I think that is absolutely, where life has taken me as I'm, entering kind of the second phase of fatherhood here, where kids are getting to be, double digits and all that fun stuff. So I think that's where I'm headed.
Well, look forward to those teenage years. But Rob, since you just joined here too, Shane, if you don't know, Rob is actually the head of, what is it, Decriminalized Nature down here in Florida?
Yeah, the Decrim Nature Florida. I'm the executive director for their chapter. We're trying to get things going. Old leadership kind of pooped out on us, but sorry I couldn't be here on time. Some of us had to work until 5.
It's all right, man. Good to have you, Rob.
Yeah, man. I was listening on the way home. So you guys were talking about Bitcoin and talking about your gubernatorial debates, and I loved watching you in the debates. I wanted to come on and say that you buried them in the ground. So it's not our message that's got an issue with it. It's like you said, running these big races, the amount of resources that are against us is overwhelming. So yeah, I enjoyed listening to the podcast up until this point. Had to transition a little bit, but yeah. Were you guys talking about Decrim at all?
Yeah, we were just kind of talking about psychedelics and how they have benefited veterans.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that fit right into what you do. So perfect
Mhm.
time for you to jump in.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of the devil. Yeah. It's I agree with Shane. There's a huge connection there, and that's kind of how to bridge. For me, that's how libertarians can bridge that gap on this issue to the more conservative leaning folks who are pretty much anti-drug, really, for the most part. You say, hey, 22 veterans a day are dying, and when you show studies like antidepressants are what less than 20% effective, and you got to take them every day, and then you go to a psilocybin or MDMA therapy session, they're 80 to 90 something percent effective, and you only do it a couple times a year. I mean, that's a no brainer to me, honestly. But you got to watch out because people are going to vote uh, how they're going to vote whenever it gets on your state's ballot. And normally, when you legalize it or medicalize it, you're going to have increased costs in the market. So that's why I'm with decrim, is because we want to do it more local. And decriminalization, once you have that as the first step, that's going to help out uh, in the market more so than it would if you pass it in the state, where these big lobbying uh, firms have been paid for these big grow ops to come in, and these big pharmaceutical companies come in and just already flood the market and raise the prices of these therapeutic sessions.
Yeah, and something for you guys to chew on a little bit is I've always just looked at nature as a right. It's one of those things where getting into legalese with other human beings about what we can and can't do is one of those things where it's why I moved to a mountain and basically like, hey, like you guys can fuck off, and if you come out here with the wrong guys, like it's a bad day kind of thing, right? So when we look at this, there are some organizations out there, and to point you guys to them, the Native American Church of Turtle Island. Really look into those guys. They've won some giant lawsuits as of in the past couple of years, where people who are deemed okay by their organization and accepted can not only grow and harvest but can possess psychedelics. So whether it's ayahuasca, whether it's psilocybin, cannabis, you name it. It's one of those things where you're a card carrying member, and you've got the full protection of the organization behind you with lawyers and everything else out there. So definitely, I think people should look into, because I think this is a bigger a bigger piece. Like this is when you get into it as deep as I have, it's not like we're going out and doing recreational drugs at parties. And actually, I highly don't recommend you ever take mushrooms and go to parties. Like I think it's a lack of respect for the mushroom itself, right? Like
Mhm.
there's a beautiful way to experience this, and it requires nature, and it requires some open space and time, and it takes your stillness, which I don't think is something that has been taught. I don't think it's been part of our culture for eons yet now. And unfortunately, it's this great book by Brian Moraski, The Immortality Key. He talks about this, and when the ancient Greeks used to get together, they called it the glue of humanity, because basically, at the end of the day, it shows you that you are part of the universe, and everybody is part of the universe. You're made of the same thing of the universe, and a lot of what's happening is there's you walking around in other skin suits having different experiences, and you gotta ease up a little bit. You gotta maybe share some empathy. And for a guy that's a former Marine, some of the highest level special operations, to say show those people some empathy, I'm going to tell you, that comes from psilocybin, and it comes from psychedelics that have changed my view of a lot of these things.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's always important to tell newcomers whenever they're trying to get into their spiritual journey. I guess tell them set and setting, and you go into this with intent, right?
Yeah.
Don't just go into it all willy nilly. Don't take it and go to Bonnaroo or something like that. You might have a bad time.
A very very bad time. And a lot of people get exposed to it a lot earlier, and and are turned off because of that reason.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh because I know a guy. As you're saying that, I'm thinking of a dude I used to know who's like, "Oh man, I wanted to do DMT at Ultra Music Festival."
Oh my god. Well, at least he's done in about 15, 20 minutes. But at the same time, I'm not saying I haven't, done that in particular what I just said, but also whenever you do it like Shane's saying with intention and you really go out in nature, you really get the full feel for what it actually what these plant medicines are actually intended to do and what they can do. Um,
Me too, Patrick.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I just saw that. Yeah. Oh, but you know what? I think if we want to switch gears to candidates, I think he got a taste of what Florida was all about. And just we're not overrun. Not all of our guys are Mises guys, but we are pretty. We work together, and we pretty much have the same philosophy all around, even non-Mises people. So it's I don't know. I wasn't at his talk. He had a talk, but he definitely saw the elections and what happened then, and so I hope maybe he's willing to work with some people.
Who knows? We'll only find out in the future.
Yeah, I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna have a really, really hard time. His likability factor is in the toilet, and it's one of those things where, even here in Georgia, maybe especially here in Georgia, it's just people are fed up, and that's not the kind of energy you need running a campaign.
Yeah, and then not to mention, well, I won't get in. I won't get into that. We'll save that. You gotta learn how to not say things on podcasts sometimes.
It makes it juicy, makes it real
Self
spicy.
censorship. Save it for when we're off the air.
Yeah.
That way, everyone will always wonder what we were saying.
Well, if you're gonna have people run your campaign, make sure those people have good standing in the state that they're helping you out in. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, you can't just take a hammer and try to force it through. Like yeah. That was, I mean, and here's the thing: is that whole crowd is some of the same crowd that was behind Joe Jorgensen. I'm not saying everybody in the Joe Jorgensen campaign, but I'm saying a lot of the people that were at the top of that campaign, man, it was brutal. It was mean, and it was vitriolic and toxic, and yeah, man, yeah, keep that stuff that low vibration shit real far away from you.
and then it alienated our own base. When this is our candidate, and then she does things that are kind of divisive, or at least the campaign did some things that were divisive. So that's another thing where it's like, okay, well, why would I vote Libertarian when they're not even representing Libertarian views? I would say, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And you clicked that, Rob, not me. Yeah, as far as that goes, I think I keep on saying this because I'm realizing it more. I'm noticing there's this problem where libertarians will run for the smallest office, kind of make a little bit of an impact, lose, and then decide they're going to run for the biggest office in the land.
Tough, man. And that's the thing is like, let's, to be very fair in, like I think the world of Dave Smith and what he's done. But we're looking at a guy that has amassed a few thousand followers or a few 100,000 followers. That's gonna be tough. You need somebody that's an absolute rock star that everybody knows. And that's the thing is, if Joe Rogan ran for president, I don't have any doubt that they would still not have him win. But at the end of the day, that's the kind of numbers you're talking about. If you're being very real and you look at the amount of followers that Trump has, the amount of followers that some of the bigger names in the DNC have, like that's you got to have that kind of following that when you speak, media reacts, and it's not it's not something that we have unfortunately.
It's very unfortunate, but. Anyway, we're coming up on the hour here. And before we go to plugs, there is one thing that I wanted to ask you because you talked a little bit about focusing on local stuff. So hypothetically speaking, this is all hypothetical, nothing is in the works. Let's say something were to happen where we tried to take over a county. Do you think that would be more feasible? Like, is that a cool idea?
Okay. Let's get a game plan. Where what if I had all the money in the world in game plans, I would say run for executive positions in your county, and I mean that whether it's mayor or whether it's sheriff. If you can run for those positions, you have an amazing amount of power because now you are the person who's the belly button, the center point for anybody who has a badge and a gun, and you can say, you will not do this in my city. You will not do this in my county. This is now off limits, and we're not taking this federal money. That is the key play. These runs for legislature and other things out there, probably not as impactful. But I will tell you, those executive seats are harder to come by for that exact reason. It is a very powerful position, but it's positions that we should probably be looking at. And hey, you know what? Leaving people alone sells these days, so it might be something we can actually pull off.
Right on. And I'm sure the right people listening to this will get that message. So anyway, I guess now we're coming up on the hour here, so let's just do some plugs. I guess go check me out on Twitter at MitchConnorJLo, and go check out 1776swag.com, where you'll find a lot of Dave Smith for President merch. But after this interview, we will not be getting any Shane Hazel 2024 merch. Sorry, Shane.
That's good. My wife is sitting there going, yes.
Nice.
Don't you put this evil on us.
Nice.
Yeah, not in this house. Not for a long time, man.
She was sick of it, huh?
Yeah, I mean 6 years or 3 campaigns. So yeah, it was a lot for a short amount of time.
Yeah, take a little reset, man. Have a little fun.
Yeah.
For me, I had the pleasure of opening up for Robbie the Fire Bernstein, and at the Florida Libertarian Party of Florida convention, and I brought my buddy Lamar along. So we killed it. If you didn't go to this show, it was a good show. Robbie killed it. I got another show coming up a couple Fridays from now, so you can check me out there at my Twitter at RobertV_94, soon to be R Vincent Comedy. I'm gonna switch that up, but yeah, that's where you can find me, guys. Thank you. And Swamp Creatures, obviously, like and subscribe to the Swamp Creatures podcast.
Oh yeah. All right, Shane, you got any plugs?
Man, Radical Pod, still running my show twice a week, very Bitcoin centric, which covers a whole bunch of things because it dives into everything. There's also the tabs there for Brave. If you guys want to support it, it's in its early phases now. You can do that there. And also, if you need help getting control of your finances in terms of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Maximalist tab is up there. It is running. Get you set up and get you out of the dollar and into a cold wallet through concierge and advisory. So if I can help you there, man, absolutely humbled to do so.
Nice.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for coming on, Shane. It was awesome to be able to catch up since 2020, and we will see you all next time.
Nice.